is going on, everyone? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode for you today. Once again, another amazing guest. We got connected through a great friend of mine, Carson Jones. Big shout out to Carson for this one. This man on social media is absolutely a force to be reckoned with. His Instagram account is just on fire. I check it every single day. I love the value and content that he puts out. It's very practical. It's very tactical. And it helps you with your mindset too, which is fantastic. But this guy has one hell of a story. And so I could sit here and set this up for another 5 minutes, but I'm going to let him do the talking. I want to introduce my man, Vidal Sassoon. No, I'm kidding. His name is SIGURD Vidal from Vidal Media. And it's just a pleasure to have you on the show today, my man.
Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for the intro.
So let's share with our audience real quick who you are, what you do, and how the hell you got so damn successful.
Well, in general, I just quit my job like all other entrepreneurs. I took that leap of faith and basically started to build. And then I spent basically my last, I would say 8-9 years building my businesses. I have around 14-15 companies in various, segments, everything from real estate to e-commerce. Mm-hmm. And basically, I reached a point where I kind of want to help others. I want to give back. You reach that point where you have what you kind of need. You've accomplished that growth yourself. And I just find real pleasure in helping others get that step going and finding that freedom in their life and that passion in their life, which is important for me.
That's awesome. Now, you started out in the music industry.
That's correct. I started my first company was actually a music studio called Clockwork Recordings. And I think it was around 93, 94, the Eurodance era. Sure. Britney Spears and that package. So I was kind of writing songs. I built this studio. But, I was having more fun than doing business, So at the age of 30, everything went to hell. Lost my girlfriend, lost my job. I was having my day job producing commercials and mastering records. And then, went home to my studio and tried to kick that out and build that. But, I didn't have the focus on the business. It was more about having fun. So I just basically went bankrupt at the age of 30. And that was a fresh start where I then started to enter radio, which was really where I found my passion. I got into research, market studies. I got into branding, was my first step into branding and, broadcast media. And that's what kind of funny because that's what everything is about on social media, right? It's about entertainment. It's about, customer centricity. It's about providing value and being in tune with your audience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you do a hell of a job with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, your Instagram account, you're just shy of 1 million followers, but those numbers really don't mean anything to me, quite frankly. What really got my attention was the engaging and how your following really responds to almost every post that you put out there. So can you talk to me about that? You have a pretty cool framework on how you structure your Instagram posts. And I wanted to get into that for a second because I need people to understand that are listening and watching into this, what that framework entails, because it is powerful. So can you sort of break down how you set up your Instagram posts and how you're getting that kind of engagement on such a regular basis?
For sure. No, I think specifically the engagement, I would kind of separate a little bit to maybe the content in a sense, because there are some mechanics which I run on the back end in order to really achieve that engagement. But in general, I spent a decade, or my last decade was basically programming radio stations, right? So variety for me, creating clocks, creating rotational clocks is always been the way you succeed in radio and TV, right? So you have to program the right variety. So we built 15-minute segments, right? So for me to build a social media, it was not just important to have the value there, because the value is one thing, right? We all talk about it. We all talk about these tactics, but if the value is not there, if you're not in sync with whoever's listening or watching, it doesn't matter, what tactics you're doing. Your content is just not useful. So customer centricity always wins. We know that, right? So, but the next step is kind of, if you're posting 3 to 4 times a day, like I am, you kind of have to try to establish, you have the brand framework, right? But then you have to kind of make it surprising. You have to make it a little bit exciting when they wake up at 7. So when they see their posts, not getting the same thing every single morning at 7, right? So we just basically have a very strong variety mix. We're focused with my team on coming up with, testing things outside that middle zone, and sticking to the topics that people really struggle with. And if people are struggling, with they have the health, the mental part, the belief part of motivation. Then you have the market and social media side, and then you have, of course, within those dimensions of the main categories, I start rotating, of course, the types of content, right? If it's video, if it's questioning, Q&A, if it's graphical elements, and we're doing a lot of graphical illustrations now, is working really amazing. But I'm going to be moving more and more towards video, because I really believe that video is kind of the future. You can see that with TikTok coming up, it's really all about high-paced video. Very cut, very intense. In my radio days, I spent a lot of time with auditorium tests, where you basically guarantee 2,000-3,000 people in an auditorium, right? You're playing hooks of the songs, and they have their dials, and you can sit in the back as a manager and analyst. You can see the trends of how they like the content, right? If it's appealing to them, of course, it goes up, they turn it up. If it's, they're losing interest, it goes down. So I've seen those tests where, big ego, top morning show talent, which are which I've been working with, are sitting there and seeing a top, going out of a top song. Everybody has that high passion, getting into the content, how impatiently they judge you, within a short time frame. They're out of there. If they start talking about themselves, or they start talking about something that is not really at that same level as the music, then, really in a split second, you've lost them. So this is what I've tried to bring back, or tried to bring into my social media, is it needs to have energy. It needs to have pace on the video. It needs to be entertaining, not just the information where you're there kind of very robotic. It needs to be personal as well, right? So you need to bond with the user, very similar to the way on-air talent and morning shows have to do with their listeners. So in many ways, the variety is key, because you're pushing 4 or 5 posts a day, right? And you don't want the same shit every morning at 7, right? So and then scheduling that and making sure to try different things is kind of what I've been focusing on. In terms of engagement, I just have this philosophy of really replying. It's just customer service 101. It's if you engage with them and you start, stop using the template, stop using how should I say, most people, they reply to maybe a couple, 10, 15 comments. If you notice, I'm putting a lot of effort into answering the comments, and that gives you the relationship, right? It's like bonding with anybody, right? If you're not personal, if you're not letting them in a way, you cannot build a relationship. So what I'm doing is having a strong focus on the direct messages, and I'm having a strong focus on the comments. And I have a support team supporting my words, my vision, which I personally trained to help me out on that, right? Because I am running 14 companies, and I think that's a challenge a lot of your listeners are having too, right? So, you build up that FAQ, you give them the philosophies, you make sure that they're responding in the way that you do, but that worked for me. But it has to be done well, right? Because if you're not doing it well, and the words and the comments and the replies are not fully your visions, then you're running into actually the opposite effect. You'll actually destroy your brand, right? So you have to be extremely careful and make sure that you have a trained team of a very few people you really trust that really understand your logic. And then, of course, whenever there's something high level, is then escalated to me, right? To make sure that I'm basically in control. So I do monitor the service. I do reply to a lot of DMs, a lot of comments every single day. But when we start reaching, 1,000 comments per post,
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you freaking keep up with that? I mean,
You can't. It's impossible. And I mean, you can see anybody. There's nobody. If you look at, a lot of the people, having 3, 4, 5 million, they're not able to answer all comments, right? And for me, that's a missed opportunity, right? So for me, it's a marketing channel like anything else, right? You have the chat bots, you have the, the site expanders that pop up on a website. So for me, it's all about, if you're not building a relationship with your clients, you're not building fans. You're
right.
literally just a broadcast one way, which is where TV was, right? People can just go to YouTube then, right? But I want them to know me. I want to build a relationship where I'm actually chatting with people and I'm giving them advice. So there's countless hours every day where I am actually responding to DMs with audio, right? Because it's quicker for me. So I just do the audio replies.
Nice.
And I am giving some quick, I'm picking 20, 30 a day. And of course, when they get an audio response back from me, which, and I'm quite busy, they're like, really, they can't really believe it sometimes. And of course, they're there, right? When I did that, I'm giving them that value of my time. But then I have that relationship. I've given them something which they then want to return in a sense, right?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So it is very important to build out your team. I know, and I think you're right. You're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table when you're not responding and it's this one-way conversation. I think going forward, I like that you're really focused on video. I think I'm happy that I started video back when I did, because I still have plenty of work to do. I'm always trying to get better at video, but we've come a long way. And I just feel like that is the way to really touch someone. If you can evoke, as many of the 5 senses as you can, I think you're going to win. And so for those, I know there's quite a few pro athletes that listen to this show now. And I think when you get out there on video and you start responding to people, I always say, go watch The Rock.
Yes.
Go watch his
amazing
social media presence.
Yep.
It is fantastic.
High level.
Like, and it is just, that's why he's got a gazillion fans. Everybody loves him. I never really heard anybody talk bad about him. And it's just a great model. So who are you paying attention to right now, and learning from?
I mean, in general, I find wisdom and knowledge everywhere. I mean, even people on the street, their opinions about how they see things from their eyes in their world, right? I mean, tunnel vision for me is kind of something I've been fighting, all the time, because you're always into, either you're doing radio or you're into music. You have this tendency to get caught up into this small world, right? And you can't really see it from the eyes of the people around you. So when I was working in radio, I was always asking taxi drivers what they felt, what they thought. And I'm really doing the same now. I mean, wisdom comes from everybody, but I do spend 2-3 hours. I follow a lot of the top influencers. I have 1.5 years ago, I wasn't so focused on social media. I was more focused on building my businesses. So of course, it took a lot of 230, 400 videos, YouTube, learning the algorithm, getting into things, right? Because you have to know the tactics. Yes, it's easy to say the value needs to be there. And I can use my broadcast experience from 15 years of managing teams and managing and building radio and TV stations. But still, you need to understand the algorithm. You need to understand how it works, why shadow bans happen to your hashtag, which is one of the reasons how you can actually get attention. If you get shadow banned, you're basically not visible anywhere. How to grow the traffic, how to make sure that you don't, do any of the softwares and the automation stuff that actually, yes, in some cases it might work with some softwares. I'm not saying you have to stay completely away from it, but for me, social media is simple. It's all about building value. It's all about building relationships. If you have the value based on their terms, what your audience is struggling with, what problems they're having, then all they're looking for is simple. They're looking for solutions to their problems. And if you can entertain them at the same time, you have an added dimension, right? You have that personality. That's when you go away from just being the book to becoming, a two-way. And I think those are kind of the two magic pillars, the value and the relationship.
I love it. Give me your epic social media fail. Give me one. Give me one. Give me your biggest social media fail ever.
I mean, the biggest social media fail must have been, no doubt, when I was trying to give away an iPhone on my first live broadcast, Instagram Live. And really, it was a mess. I mean, I don't think it was that entertaining. You know, you can only test that much when you do a live, you know, on Instagram, right? You have the camera and then you're supposed to pick a winner, browsing through this small screen. And then you have this ticking clock going around in your mind because you know they're sitting there waiting and you're seeing the comments come in, right? So, yeah, that was a stressful moment. So it worked in the end.
So how would you do it over? How would you do it over?
No, I mean, now I would plan it, and of course, same thing as in a radio, right? You want to cast the winners. You know, you want the value. If you're giving away an iPhone or you're giving away a prize, it's not just about giving away the prize. You want to give it away in a way which entertains as well, right? So if you look at winners on radio, winners on television, unless it's a live contest, you're wanting that winner to actually react in a certain way and cast them in the way. So that's kind of the inside behind the scenes of radio. And it's a little bit the same here. I would have put more focus on that rather than just post a story with a winner, right? I mean, you get that 24-hour blip. Yeah. But if you had some good audio, you had some good stories around it. So we're back to broadcast radio and broadcast television, really. That's what it's all about.
Wow. I love how you took your radio experience and use those strategies and tactics in your social media game plan. And
yeah, it's the same thing. That's what's so fascinating. I mean, I quit 2010. I just left my job. I didn't want to continue. I felt I'd achieved what I wanted. My dad died. I had this wake-up call that, hey, shit, I need to do something now. So I literally quit. When I came home from the US and buried my dad, I came home. I just literally wrote out my resignation letter. I delivered the next day. And I was kind of one of the top directors. I'd been building several successful stations and just launched a new morning show, which is now the #1 in Norway. And, you know, I just literally quit. Nobody understood anything. But I knew that if I would stay there, you know, I would always find a reason. We just bought a house with my wife at the time. I had 2 kids. So you get this economy strain, right? Which most people have. You know, they get into this society pathway of having to have a house, having to have a car. You know, you have to go through that process. And I know that many entrepreneurs talking about getting out of that very early. For me, it took a long time. I was an employee mindset, except for that studio, for many, many years, but I enjoyed what I was doing, right? I loved working in radio and TV. I love the music business. I love sitting in a concert with Alicia Keys, 5 people around, a piano. Those were experiences that I value more than materialistic and money, right? But the freedom you have, the freedom I wanted by getting out of this corporate structure, right? And starting your business. I started with internet and e-commerce because I wanted the freedom to be able to do what I wanted, travel the world. So I had a really targeted approach to that. And I thought, okay, now I'm moving away from radio and TV. I'm going into e-commerce, learning wireframing, learning design, you know, UX, learn Balsamic, started learning KPIs, all that stuff, right? And CRO, conversion rate optimization. And, you know, I never thought that I would get back to where I was, but that's exactly where you are now. I mean, in many ways, there's no difference. You can call it radio, you can call it podcast, but what is podcast? It's more or less radio, right? It's just not on it's on a demand, supply and demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on demand. So, I mean, and that's another thing. I mean, yes, video is important, but really audio and storytelling on audio, really, you can play with so much emotions. You can create pictures in the mind of the listeners that video can't, because in video, you're giving them the answers, right? That's why people are disappointed when they read the book. You know, they love the book. Then they go to the video and it collides with their mind, right?
Yes.
So I really feel that podcasts is really something that I think will be growing over the years. Also because the time it takes to consume video. I'm noticing myself, I'm blocking around 1.5 hours every morning at 6 to kind of go through my learning alone, you know, read some books, look at listen to some podcasts. But, you know, I mean, the time is limited, right? I wish I had more time.
Yeah.
But going to the gym, driving the car, when you start getting podcasts in the car, always voice activated podcast on demand,
Yeah.
it's about being available, right? That's the reason radio is where it is now, is still available so
Yeah.
easy in the cars. When that disappears, podcast comes in. There's a big huge future for podcast, and I love the medium. I love
Yeah,
radio. I
me
love
too.
audio.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I got into it. It's going on 3 years. Like I got into it right at the right time. I mean,
Yes.
my biggest block was like, how do I publish the damn thing? What's the process going to be to get it done? Blah blah blah.
Yep.
Then I found this done for you service. He was actually a client of mine, and I was like,
Yep.
this works out perfect. This is perfect timing. And so he's just been a fantastic asset to the business. And we just give him the
That's
audio, and
great.
he does everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
it's,
mean, you're doing a great job at it too, right? You're giving strong value, having good guests. So, it's all about the quality in the end, right?
listen, I thank my audience almost every episode, 55,000 downloads a month and growing
That's
strong.
amazing.
That tells me I'm doing
Amazing.
something right.
Yes.
I would have
Good job,
never
man.
thought, I would have never thought we were to get those numbers.
Yeah.
I just was doing it literally, my thoughts, and and then you get better at it as you go. And that's one of the
Yep.
things I really want people to understand. Like, my first few podcasts, they were probably horrible looking back at them now, right? But
Mm.
as you get better and you try different things, I like what you said before, Sigurd, where you're just trying different things. And if they suck, oh, well, you just keep it moving. Like, you're not going to be, oh, man, that sucked. We're never doing that again. No, 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 no.
For
And then,
sure.
like,
You just have to try.
yeah.
Really,
And so
try.
as we wrap up the show, I want to ask you a couple maybe personal questions, not too personal,
Sure.
but I think a lot of people are going to want to know, and I get these questions a lot myself. Where did this mindset come from? The one thing that I really found that I liked about you was that, one, you seem super approachable. So if I saw you on the side of the street, I could definitely come up to you and be like, hey, what's going on, my man? Follow your stuff. You're awesome. And I can feel you coming back with a very genuine response. But you have this mentality and this mindset that is very contagious. Like, you want to be around you. Right? You create this aura around you that makes people want to gather around, if you will. Where did that mindset come from? Did you have it at such a young age? Did some compelling event happen to you when you were younger that you were like,
I mean, I really think it's, first of all, I've been thinking a lot about this as well, try to figure out and crack the code. But, why are certain people different than others? But I really have to say that the passion is really the big difference in my, I'm really genuinely excited
yeah,
about things I'm excited about. Things I'm not excited about, I'm actually extremely lazy. I'm actually, I don't want to do them. I try to really get them out of my life as quickly as possible. So, it's this filtering of and being relentless on only wanting to do what I love doing. And when I love doing something, I just want to keep doing it and doing more of it, right? As soon as I have too many days in a row where, like I was noticing at the end of my career, I'd kind of built a lot of radio station and they were successful, but you have to fight this corporate environment. You have to fight people that don't have that passion, right? They're only thinking about that next level. They're only thinking about the cash. They don't really have that same ambition as a builder. So I do have that entrepreneurial passion, and the same thing with athletics. I was really high, tough on athletics, training 6, 7, 8 hours a day, running a lot, very competitive. So I think it's just this. I would just say it's relentless passion and excitement for what you're doing. And I don't feel I've had a job for many, many years, even though I've been an employee. And I think when you are around passionate people, whoever they are, who are really excited about what they're doing, and they share that excitement of what they're working on and giving you that insight into their world. I mean, either it's, I was just watching, one episode of Chef's Table, which is a chef program on Netflix. And, I'm not a chef. I don't love to cook, but to see the passion of these guys, to see the detail that they put into their work, it's the same thing. It's all about passion. Either an athlete or, you're an employee, you can love your job. I'm not saying entrepreneurship is for everybody. That's a confusion many times from people around me, that if you find a job you love, where you're excited to go to work, and you find that amazing, yes, continue it. Money isn't everything,
No.
but you have to love what you're doing, because when at the end of the day, when you're looking back at your life some years in the future, that's what you're going to be remembering, is the experiences, the emotions, the champagne moments. Maybe you'll remember your Ferrari the first time you drove it, but you drive that Ferrari for a month and it's like just a normal car, right?
Yes, yes. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, do I get another car? And I'm like, I'm going to be bored of it in a month. Like, that passion's not there. I'd rather take that money, reinvest it in the business, or put it towards a family event where those memories will go on forever. We just got back from Spain, Italy, and France. We did a nice cruise.
Wow, amazing.
Those moments on the boat and those moments in France, and like, you can't buy those. Like,
no.
You just really can't. We have a 2-year-old son, so he came along, and just creating those memories with them. So what I'm hearing you say is, find your passion and be very black and white with it. Like, if this is what you love to do, then go all in. If you hate doing XYZ, then just stop doing it. One thing that I realized was, as I got older, I'm going to be 40 next year. And I realized that, like, my 30s are gone. And I pay attention now to what I really spend my time on, who I surround myself with, what videos I'm watching, like, to the food I'm eating.
Yep.
And I feel
that's
like
the way it is.
It's this age where, like, you get to this point and you're like, oh, we're getting close to, midlife, if you will. Like, if I'm not doing what I love to do now, when am I going to start? Because we're going down. Like, once you hit 40, you probably got another 50 years to live. If you live healthy, right?
Yep.
In my head, I'm like, that's only 50 more years. Like, that's not a lot of time for me. So I need to
I get it. I get it. It is.
That's sort of,
and I mean, that's what I think many people don't really see before it's gone a while. And I must admit, it took a while for me. Like, when I got an offer for $100 million for my company after the first 2 years, that's when it kind of realized that, oh shit, what next? You kind of hit this, you kind of get this realization of, okay, what you're chasing, what you think is okay, the money, the security, millions in your bank account. Don't get me wrong. It's always more useful than not having cash, right? But it will not replace happiness, right? If you're having a miserable life, and if you're literally not knowing what to do, you're not filling your day with things that you love doing, whatever the hell it is, then you will be somewhat, doesn't matter how much millions you have in your bank account, you'll be freaking bored. And many of the guys who have a lot of money, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but at least I know a lot of people which are loaded. But they can't find any excitement. It's like they went into this depression. They're missing that start hustle where they had some problems to solve, right? They're all about trying to reach that retirement early kind of thing. And then they're thinking they'll be happy sitting on a freaking beach, going from, 80, 90 hours a week to sitting on a beach in Maldives with a cocktail 8 hours a day. Of course they won't manage that, right? So as long as you're filling your life with what you feel and I feel and whoever it is are filling their hours and days with what they love doing, and if they can combine that, find a match combining that with something that can actually give them financial freedom, right, and experiences, then I think that's kind of the key here, right? Everybody thinks it's the Ferrari, everybody thinks it's about the millions in the bank account, but it's not. It's not.
No, you got to have that self-fulfilling, how do I say it? Self-fulfilling feeling. Like, if it's got to fill you up, and it's got to fill you up. And if it doesn't, then keep looking. I think that's what we need to do. We need to keep looking. So as we wrap up, Sigurd, let's, because I get this question a lot. It's, And a person of influence is standing in front of me going, wow, you're pretty awesome at what you do on social media. That's how that's how you became part of my ecosystem and you
Yeah,
got into my world. Person
sure.
of influence is standing in front of you saying, what is one piece of advice you can give me with
In order
somebody
to
that,
do social media, or you
yeah.
mean? Yeah.
What would that be? Because I see these guys going up to Gary Vee all the time going, well, what should I be doing? I'm a pro ball player and I have a decent following that is pretty engaged, but I don't know how to interact with these people, right?
Hmm.
Like, what is one thing I could start doing today that is going to help me become more of a marketable athlete or person of influence?
I mean, it's a little bit hard because the one size doesn't fit all in a sense, right? So if you're, let's say, if you're a celebrity from before, right, you already have a status. Of course, that is a little bit different than the way the interest that people have in your account, right? But if you're basically starting from scratch, you might not have a name. Nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
You need to kind of create that brand. You need to create that value. You need to provide some value, which might not be just your persona. So it might not be as interesting for others to see what you ate for lunch, right? Or you
Right.
and your girlfriend, in a sense. So, I mean, for me, the thing I did was three things. The number one is I needed the knowledge, right? The
Okay.
one thing is I need to know what the hell is going on. I need to learn from the best. So you're looking at the accounts that really know what they're doing. I spent a lot of time looking at videos and watching the shared videos about the top influencers out there, how they were growing their Instagram, how they were growing their YouTube. I was, really doing a lot of research into that area, hours and hours and hours. And I'm still the number one on my team. I'm still the number one knowledgeable person, keeping updated on the algorithm, knowing how to fix problems, and understanding, for example, now how to grow on TikTok, for example, how to be verified on TikTok. So, these new channels, getting that knowledge, I think, is the number one. If you don't have that knowledge, you basically are handicapped in a way. You don't know how to play the game. So,
So
that's the first step.
educate yourself.
Yes, educate yourself is the number one. Number two is really who you're talking to. It's classic marketing and positioning here, right? So, you can't be everything. You can't be everything. I cannot be talking about marketing and then talking about the gym and then talking about diet and the salads. I have to kind of choose a segment, a niche to be known for, and then you can expand. If you start owning a niche, you can of course do like Tony Robbins, where you start expanding. Same as Gary Vee, start expanding into new areas. But Gary Vee is social media. That was his core, right? How he started by predicting the future, predicting social media, and doing a good job on the content. Same thing with Tony Robbins, was more on the life coaching. And then he started expanding into relationships and stuff. So you need to know what you want to be known for, is kind of the question. So when you ask people 5 years from now, in just one sentence, you can't use a big bio, right? That's not a qualified reply. Like,
No.
what's the one thing they will say about you? Oh, SIGURD is
Blank.
dot, 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 kind of,
Yes.
So you need to answer that question before you start something. So the knowledge, number one, know where and who you want to be, what kind of positioning. That will give you the target group, right? If you know the target group, who they are, what geos, and you start analyzing their psychology. And this is something that, my team is really, they've heard this a lot, but I feel that in marketing in general, even with agencies, there's way too little focus on the psychology of the people, right? Seeing the world from their eyes, seeing the world from their emotions, seeing the world from their, you're not alone on social media. You're not alone on YouTube. There's thousands of others like you, right? So you have to play the game according to seeing that world from their eyes and understand how little importance you have in their feed, because they're not just following you, they're not just following Sigurd Vidal as a social. So yeah, and that, that leads me to the next point, which is you have to be you. And that's really something that a lot of people are missing. And I must admit that I was also a little bit, you're afraid of going out of that comfort zone, right? You're afraid of sharing. I mean, I'm kind of a private person. I was building my businesses. I'm not the talker that goes around and brags. I just did it. I knew what I liked to do and I did it. But now suddenly to go out and share things and to be open about things, and it's very personal to putting yourself out there. So you're always questioning yourself, hey, should I do this? So I haven't seen anybody else do what I'm doing now. Most people will think, oh, I shouldn't do it then, right? So they want to lean on what other people are doing all the time. And I'm not saying you won't have success. You can learn from why those things are working, but really you need to be unique. Everybody's successful. Either you're, a brand like Nespresso or you're a brand like IKEA, you have to be unique to position yourself. You need to be unique. And especially on social media, what you're building on social media is a personal brand, and you cannot be something you're not, because people will see it through in the end. They will see through you, and they will understand that you're faking it or you're trying to be, something else than who you are. So I would say that those things are really the core for me. And then it's quite simple. All you do every day is when you look at a post, you have an idea is, okay, what problems are we helping the consumers now? The people we have now, what are they getting out of this? How are we changing their life with that post? Are we making them laugh? Okay, cool, great. We're making them laugh. That's an emotion. So if we can be emotional with them and at the same time teach them something or build their confidence, you've won. It's really that simple.
Yeah,
right?
you've won.
Yeah.
You've won. That's awesome. All right. Pretty like flash questions here real quick. Sure. What's your favorite podcast that you're listening to right now?
Well, I'm listening a lot to Gary Vee's podcast. I'm listening a lot to Tony Robbins. I'm sorry, I can't mention one. I really, but I feel it's like a rainbow, right? You have that's what's so beautiful, that people are different, and you listen to, some of course are not my favorites, which I just struggle even listening to.
Why do you struggle listening to them?
I mean, in general, I'm lacking authenticity in most cases.
Okay.
Yep. So as long as it's authentic, and that's where I think people go wrong. They're worried about not being perfect. You see, they're worried, but there's value in not being perfect, right? That's part of you. It's getting to know you. If you're perfect with your perfect suit all the time, you're perfect with a clean edit all the time, literally, it's impossible to get to know you. People won't have emotions about you. You'll be like this polished doll. So either a video or on your audio. So, I mean, I just love, and some weeks I'm in the trend of Grant Cardone. I listen a lot to his stuff also because I'm doing a lot of real estate now. And I'm getting into that and learning a lot of good stuff from him. He has a lot of amazing advice. I'm one of his fans. And, I'm listening to Ty Lopez. So I think, the clue for me is I want to know what the people are doing. I want to know what the business group is doing, like everybody in that category.
Yes.
And then basically summarize that and use that for my benefit, converting me into me, right? So I have to be me. I cannot be somebody else. So, yeah.
That is fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Sigurd, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for those folks. I loved it.
Absolutely. For those that want to learn more about you, where can we point them?
SIGURDVIDAL.com.
That's
or
it.
my Instagram @SIGURD.Vidal.
Done deal.
Yes.
My man.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
It was a pleasure, guys.
Same here.
Hope you got some value out of this one. I sure did. This will be on YouTube. This will be on iTunes. We will get you the show notes and links and all of that. We'll make sure that you're tagged in anything that comes out with your face on it, to make sure that you get recognized for the amazing contribution you made to our audience today. So thanks so much again for your time.
Thanks, man. Have a good day. Rock the world. Okay.
Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.
Same to you.